I would like to introduce you guys our two moderators for the morning. Shirley. Shirley is currently the International Partnership Specialist at the University of Saskatchewan, and she is also serving the Immigration Advisory Table. And our second moderator is Ileana. Ileana Anaya is the co-chair of the Local Immigrant Advisory Table to Local Immigration Partnership Table. Ileana works with newcomers and refugees at the Saskatoon Open Door Society. So would you like to take it away, Shirley and Ileana? And the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Shadi, for the introduction. It is my greatest pleasure to moderate a panel with my lovely colleague, Ileana from Saskatoon Open Door Society. So I will moderate the panel discussion first, and then Ileana will take over the questions and answers. So, without further ado, I would like to briefly introduce our panelists today. So from the employers and employees perspective, so they're from a wide brand, of industries, from business, government, and higher education. I'm going to read their names, and please wave your hand once your name is called. Dr. Aaron Genest from Siemens Digital Industries.
Hi there.
Mr. Palaj Sayal from the Global Institute for Water Security, University of Saskatchewan. Constable Jin Xiao from Saskatoon Police Service.
Good morning.
Mr. Brandon Harris from Peter Lucas Project Management. And Dr. Bessie from International Student and Study Abroad Center, University of Saskatchewan.
Shirley, I'm here, but my video was, okay. I've been allowed to. Okay, good.
Okay, yes. Okay, we can hear
everybody.
Hi, Bessie. Okay, so we will invite our panelists to share their experiences one by one, and then there will be a Q&A session after that. So please put your questions in the Q&A box you will find on the screen, and then we will try our best to get as many answers as possible. All right, so I will go with Aaron, who is from Siemens Digital Industries. Aaron, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So my name is Aaron Genet. I am with Siemens Digital Industries in Saskatoon. We're actually from an acquisition of a small startup that started about 15 years ago and got acquired by Siemens about 5 years ago. And now we have 160 people, mostly computer scientists and engineers, who work here in our Saskatoon offices. We've been spending quite a bit of time involved in community, and one of those roles is to sit as the chair of an organization called SaskTech, which worries about labor in Saskatchewan, primarily for innovation and tech companies. And in that role, we have the opportunity to speak a great deal with post-secondary institutions, with government, with kindergarten to grade 12 stakeholders, and with career training specialists. And obviously, immigration is a key aspect, particularly in our industries, where a lot of the expertise in innovation and technology lies outside of the province or outside of the country. And so we put quite a bit of effort into trying to understand how we can attract more immigrants to Saskatchewan, how once immigrants are here, we can ensure that there are as few barriers as possible to their joining the labor force and leveraging the skills that they have rather than the skills that might be the ones that are easiest to access through the labor available to them. And we look at where professional development organizations might create roadblocks or opportunities for immigrant workers. And generally speaking, we try to ensure that our employers are aware of the various immigration streams and how they can interact with immigrant communities. I would say that in general, this has been very difficult work. I think that we tend to take a policy and program approach to a challenge that is actually a concierge service that needs to occur. And the The examples being that even in Siemens, when we bring immigrants in to come and work at our company, we want them to stay here. The amount of effort that we have to put in to ensuring that they have access to all of the steps necessary to be able to become settled and happy in Saskatoon or in Saskatchewan is alarmingly high. And that is even considering that there are a great number of not-for-profits and other stakeholders who are very interested in trying to facilitate the process. It is just not one smooth process at all. And of course, one of the reasons for that is that no particular path is unique. And I think as we've taken steps on this journey of trying to attract more and more immigrants, we've been able to do things in the opening funnel, in providing new opportunities for people to come into the province and in advertising the availability of jobs. But we haven't been able to do a good job of the rest of it, which is once people set foot in Saskatchewan, how do we ensure that they know what jobs are available, that the employers know that they're here, that the skills are good matches, and if they're not, that we're able to provide access to the education and opportunities necessary to tweak that, and that we generally appreciate the opportunities that immigrants provide the province as they land in Saskatoon and in Saskatchewan. So I would say that to date, it has been a failure of effort, despite learning a fair amount and working fairly hard. And there's a long ways to go. There have been some successes that I'll highlight before I turn it over to my fellow panelists quickly. One is most recently, just this past week, Government of Saskatchewan announced a new immigrant program for a selected group of employees who fall into particular job categories that allows a rapid access to permanent residency at the same time as access to work permits that really will have the time, we hope, in being able to become a permanent resident in Canada. This is an important initiative for us because we have no desire to have temporary foreign labor. That's not the objective. We want people to come here, live here, bring their families, grow up, and have the next generations also working in the province. And we can't do that if we're not offering a rapid path to becoming Canadian citizens or at least permanent residents. And so that's one of the wins that we've had. We have been doing ongoing outreach through Regina Open Door Society, through Saskatoon Open Door Society and other places, as well as alignment with the immigration and career training at the Government of Saskatchewan. All of those efforts are geared to trying to understand how we can effectively take the pool of immigrants who are arriving every day in Saskatchewan with the skills that we need and match them with the jobs that we have. There are hundreds of open jobs in technology in Saskatchewan right now across every domain, and they remain unfilled. We're filling them, but we're opening them actually faster than we're filling them. And so whereas 3 or 4 years ago, there were 200 open jobs, that number has tripled. And so it is a pressing problem and one that fortunately people want to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for sharing your, what you have done to help the city and the province to get our newcomers to get employed. So I totally agree with you. I think our new policy or new immigration initiative will help us to get more newcomers employed. So I think that is also in line with Saskatchewan's growth plan. So next, I'm going to invite Palash Sanyal from the Global Institute for Water Security at the University of Saskatchewan. Palash?
Thank you, Shirley. Can everyone hear me? Just making sure of that. Thanks.
Yes, we can.
So my name is Palash Sanyal. I'm working as the Strategic Partnership and Project Manager at the Global Institute for Water Security. I came to Canada about 5 years ago as a permanent resident and without a job. And I tried to get a job for the first few months, and I landed in Saskatoon. And one of the hardest thing was getting that job that Aaron was mentioning, right? Like finding where you actually look for that job and who you go to and who do you talk to. And one of the things I found was better for me is to go and get a degree rather than spend over a year trying to find a job. So that's what I did. I went to University of Saskatchewan, got a degree, and started working here at the university as well. So university is one of the biggest employer in the province, as many of you know, and also creates opportunity and provides training for the new immigrants as well as students, as my colleague here, Basse, might and will, I hope, will focus on that, the university initiatives. But my personal, I actually focus on future of work in many of my work. And one of the biggest issues that I feel Saskatoon, and I don't mention a couple of those, but one of those is the knowledge transferability, or how do you make sure that people actually understand the experience and knowledge you're bringing from outside is transferable in Saskatchewan, or how you equivalent that through professional organizations or even to employers. So that's one of the things that I myself faced, and I feel many of the immigrants face when they come in here. And it's one of the things that the province, for example, as well as professional organizations working towards, for example, APEX, Association for Professional Engineers and Geologists in Saskatchewan, they're trying to make it more accessible and make it more transferable. So that's one of the things. I think Aaron was right about the fact that we don't have a centralized place to find the employees, the potential employees and employers in one place, that people will know that the immigrants has arrived over here. At the Institute, we employ quite a lot of postdocs, students, PhD students, masters, as well as people working abroad, coming into Canada and working here for different projects that we do. But again, the problem becomes all those bureaucratic steps, the steps you have to take to bring those people in, making sure they can be in Saskatchewan, as well as they can start a life in a way that makes most sense to them. So happy to talk more about those. And Shirley, that's my spiel for now. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Palash. I really like your point in the how higher education to help the new immigrants and to hire new immigrants, but as well as provide the training for them. So I think that's very important. Next, I'm going to invite Constable Jin Xiao from Saskatoon Police Services. Jin, floor is yours. Sorry, I think you're on mute.
Good morning, everyone. I am Constable Jing Xiao, and sorry, I have to use my iPhone, and it just fell. Anyway, I'm Constable Jing Xiao. Thanks. First, thank you, Jasmine Callis from Immigration Partnership Saskatoon for inviting me to this event. I thought I'm talking about why I'm here, but listening to the first two panelists, it sounds like I have to give some very critical comment on why I stay here. Anyway, I came to Canada from China in 2000, 22 years ago, and I went to university here and got my master's degree in education. In those days, with a master's degree in education, that means you are unemployed after you graduate. So, but very fortunate, after graduation, I actually joined Saskatchewan Intercultural Association. They have a mentorship program, and it was an amazing program. And I was, through the program, I actually was able to get a job right away and stay. And that helps me to stay in Saskatoon and Saskatchewan. And in year 2005, so after about 1 year's preparation, I was recruited by Saskatoon Police Service. So I have been a police officer for 17 years. And during these 17 years, I have been working in, just like everyone else, I work in patrol. I also later joined the cultural and diversity unit, the community liaison unit, and currently I work as the provincial court liaison officer. So I also have an office at the courthouse, but I'm the liaison between the police service and the provincial court. So one thing I want to say is like, I enjoy working for the Saskatoon Police Service is the opportunities I get. I get to work, oh, I can hear echoes. Is there echoes?
The echoes happen when we don't talk. So actually, I think we need to just keep talking.
Okay, all right, okay. Okay, so one thing is with the police service is like I get to work in one position for 3 to 5 years, and after 3 to 5 years, I get to apply for another totally different positions. So this way I was able to try something new every time. And I can say my work, it's never the same day twice. So to me, that it's very important. And also the pay, of course. And the police service also provides a lot of continuous education and on-the-job training for our officers. And so that makes the job is very challenging, I have to say, especially nowadays, even over the last 5 years with the cell phone cameras, with all the everything, the technology's advancement, it just makes our work and also makes our work challenging, and also it creates more opportunities for our officers. So that's why I do like it. But the main reason I stay in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan is because I got married, and my husband is born and raised in Saskatoon, and he will never leave, and he works at the university. So that's why we are here. And we enjoy every day living in Saskatoon. Okay, and that's something about me.
Thank you so much, Jean. I think what I heard from you is, we can, I think some tips for our new immigrants. One is try to do something like mentorship program. Go for those nonprofit organizations, ask them for help. Number two is don't underestimate your capabilities. You can do something totally different than what your degree offers. So I think those are very good tips. Thank you so much for that. Next, I'm going to invite Ms. Brandon Harris from Peter Lucas Project Management. Brandon? Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
Is that better?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Thank you. I feel very seen with Aaron's comment about just keep talking, because like that's totally me. So thank you, Aaron. So as I was saying, shouting into the void there for a moment, my name is Brandon Harris, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Peter Lucas Project Management. And so we're a Saskatoon owned and operated business that provides resources and infrastructure to mining and industrial clients kind of across Saskatchewan, mostly centered in and around Saskatoon. We've got 40 people currently working within the business. And I guess, every day my job involves recruiting and hiring people to serve client needs. And so I'm very humbled to have been invited to speak on the panel here today with this impressive group of community leaders. But what I'm going to talk about is a bit more practical, but it really builds, I think, upon some of the points that have already been made. So I really appreciate that. But I want to talk about two things specifically, and I guess the work that I do is really related to a lot of professional level of services. So engineers, accountants, business analysts, those types of things. And what might not be immediately obvious is that those jobs like that are heavily influenced by culture in in Saskatchewan in particular. It's different than, say, operating a piece of equipment, maybe an excavator. It's maybe even the same piece of equipment if you're using it in the Middle East or you know, in Saskatchewan, but the way we manage projects, the way we support clients in some of these professional areas is just heavily dependent on the way we do business and heavily dependent on the culture of Saskatchewan. And as you're probably all aware, people living here, we're a very small community, and so a lot of like the way to do business is built around previous experience doing specific things in sectors that you might have X number of years working in potash. Well, if you're coming from abroad, there's not necessarily potash mines in places that people are coming from. And so one of the challenges that are faced by newcomers and faced by employers is overcoming that preconceived notion that only people that have done this type of work before can be successful in a different sector. And so I think there's a lot of work to be done on boiling down people's experiences and backgrounds, kind of putting it into competencies or defined skills and demonstrating how those are transferable, geographically and sectorially, if you will, between sectors. And so that's one barrier that we're working on with our clients every day to try and address. And another thing about the culture that I find is a particular challenge is that the way that Saskatchewan does business and people in Saskatchewan do business is, again, very cultural based. So I'll give an example. When I interview people, I ask everyone the same question, and that is, it's your first day on a brand new job with a brand new team. How do you set yourself up to be successful on your project? And what I get from a lot of newcomers, not everyone, but a lot of newcomers, is I read the scope document, I get familiarized with my accountabilities and responsibilities, I learn all the ins and outs of the project in that way, and then I go out and develop trust and develop credibility by just performing my job to the highest level possible. It's a great answer, right? That's a great answer to that question. But if you talk to someone who's been raised in Saskatchewan work environment and culture, they answer that question totally differently. They say, my first day, I don't even sit at my desk. I walk from office to office, meeting every single person on the project team, stakeholders, my manager, and I find something in common with them on a personal level and try to establish that credibility and start building that trust. And it's an unbelievably difficult thing to achieve if you have never watched the same sports in your entire life as the person in the office next to you. If you've never, you didn't visit the same lakes when you were growing up. There's so many things that when you grow up in Saskatchewan, you just take for granted. And as a newcomer, it's incredibly difficult to overcome those barriers to trust building and credibility building in those professions like engineering, project management, business analysis, etc. And so I really see, like we've talked about it a lot already this morning, but it's kind of a two-prong approach that's required. One is developing and nurturing the newcomers in our workforces to be able to work and be successful in this environment that is what it is in Saskatchewan professions. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. There's a lot of efficiency in that trust and interpersonal relationship-based success, but we have to make sure that that doesn't exclude people, because the economy needs diverse workforces. We need newcomers. We need better engagement of our Indigenous communities and capacity in the Indigenous workforce. And we need more women that have been, disproportionately affected by things like COVID to be re-engaging in the profession in which they're trained and back into the workforce. My colleagues over at the Saskatchewan Industrial Mining Association, Suppliers Association, SIMSA, they recently compiled all the major capital work that's coming in the province of Saskatchewan for the next few years, and it amounted to over $23 billion of capital projects. That's just the project though. So every one of those facilities, you know, canola crushing plants, mines, irrigation canals, all of those things are going to require people to operate them, to maintain them. And then there's all the spin-off economic benefits of successfully executing those capital projects. We do not have the workforce in the professions to manage and execute those projects with the way that the industry is set up right now. So we need to get that figured out, and we need to get that figured out very quickly. I think, you know, Aaron kind of mentioned that that work's been going on in the tech sector for a while. That similar work is going to need to start being, an intentional work is going to need to start being applied in the professions, because this is about the long-term sustainability of Saskatchewan, economic prosperity, and it's the right thing to do. We don't want anyone left behind as the economy chugs forward. We should all be able to reap the benefits of that. So I just want to touch on that really quickly, because there's a couple things that tools already in the toolbox that businesses can use today in order to overcome some of those barriers. One is creating environments where trust can be built without relying on people, you know, complaining about the weather together. You know, environments where people can share meaningful conversations. Maybe it's about sharing your culture. Maybe it's about, you know, talking about things that are in common, and employers can facilitate those. The other thing is using tools in the community that are available to us right now via, you know, the Saskatchewan Intercultural Association. We've had a long-standing partnership with them. We've had several interns over the years, and they do such an awesome job of preparing people for the workplace. Then when they're here, we have an opportunity to kind of pick up the baton and continue to nurture and support their success. So anyway, I've already gone on too long, but I could go on for days. I'm very passionate about it. And yeah, again, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Brendan, for your passion about helping our newcomers. So I think what I heard from you, there are a couple of things. I think I wrote my notes. I think those are great. You know, we need to embrace the culture, the diversity and inclusion to our workforce. How can we build that trust for our newcomers? I think those are important. I know that you mentioned we're a small community, but I want to say that we're a small community, but we are a small community with big heart. So thank you so much for that. Next, I'm going to invite Dr. Bassi from the International Student and Study Abroad Center at University of Saskatchewan. Bassi?
Yeah, thanks so much, Kelly, for the introduction. Can everyone hear me? I'm not having echo, right? No echoes?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay, as Shelley has said, my name is Bassi. I always like to emphasize that my first name and the last name are the same, so it's no mistake. Just, you know, I consider it a privilege to be on the panel for today's event, and I am very thankful to IPSK for the invite. I came to Canada in August 2007 as an international graduate student from Nigeria. Spent my first year of graduate studies at Dalhousie University before moving to the University of Saskatchewan to continue my grad studies. I obtained my master's degree in 2011 and my PhD degree in 2018 from the University of Saskatchewan. Both degrees are in physics and engineering physics. I have been living in Saskatoon for 13 years now. Here in Saskatoon, all my work experience is within the University of Saskatchewan. And like one of the panelists said, there are lots of jobs in the university. And volunteering, I repeat, and volunteering really helped. In the fall of 2009, the University of Saskatchewan Graduate Student Association, simply referred to as GSA, needed grad students to help with the GSA Welcome event for grad students. The GSA executive in charge of the event was the Vice President, Student Affairs. I still remember her name, Shalza. Being someone that loves to help, I volunteered. And on the event day, I remember helping till about 12 a.m. Still in the fall of that 2009, the GSA acquired a new space. It's a very big space and very unique. The former Emmanuel St. Chapel, but it's called GSA Commons for grad students. And they posted a job for the position of GSA Commons Coordinator stroke Office Assistant. And I applied. Guess what? One of the members of the job interviewers was the GSA President, Student Affairs, whom I worked with till about 12 a.m. on the GSA welcome event there. I got the job. Why did I get it? Because of that community, because I volunteered. I worked as a GSA Common Coordinator stroke Office Assistant till May 2018. From 2009 till May 2018. I still hold the record as the longest serving staff of a graduate GSA Commons Coordinator. I left the job because I was no longer considered a graduate student. That's when I graduated from my PhD degree in 2018. That's one. Volunteering really helped. I want to emphasize on that. Now, I am currently an International Education Officer at the International Student Therapeut Center, simply referred to as ISAC. The ISAC, formerly known as International Student Office, does from time to time call for students volunteer to help with events for international students. One such event, and it's a very big and popular one, is the International Student Welcome, held in September and January of each year. I started volunteering at ISAC in 2010. And as a result, I was successful in securing various job positions for students at ISAC. I have been part of ISAC as a student from 2010 to 2018. After my graduation in June 2018, and later that year, I was so excited when I received a LinkedIn notification of a job advert by ISAC for the position of International Education Officer. I applied and got the job. Because of being part of ISAC for about 8 years as a student, fitting in as a full-time staff was no problem at all. I had a very smooth transition. It was like a homecoming. Sincerely speaking, volunteering has contributed to where I am today in terms of work. I volunteer to help when help is in need. It is a good thing to volunteer. One can benefit a lot, and there are so many volunteer opportunities. If you are a new landed immigrant, and while still trying to navigate your path into getting your dream job, maybe in your career path, there are so many volunteer opportunities out there. There may be even volunteer opportunities in your career path. Well, you've not gotten the job yet, but they're calling for volunteers. Man, volunteer, and you'll be so surprised where that can, or the benefit you can get from that. So my emphasis in my own case is volunteer. I never suffered, I never went through any stress instead in terms of getting to where I am in terms of work. So Shirley, volunteer is a way to go. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Bessie. I think, first of all, I want to say, I think Saskatchewan is so lucky to have you transferred from Halifax. So I think we got a very good talent here. I think University of Saskatchewan did a great job to have you. So I think what I heard from you, Bessie, is the volunteerism is important for newcomers. I kind of recall that, maybe a couple of years ago when I was reading an article talking about Saskatchewan has the highest volunteer rate among all provinces and territories in Canada. So I think we have a culture here. So now that's back to Brendan. We have a culture here of devoting your spare time to the community, to the charities, and to the activities that you're passionate for and you are caring. So I think that's a very good point, for our newcomers to be aware, volunteer, and you can get your friends, you can create your network, and maybe the job will come to you, not that, on the other way, you're looking for jobs. So I think that's a very good tip. So once again, thank you so much, all the panelists, to share your knowledge, experience, and tips. So I think now let's go for the Q&A session. So I will pass it over to Ileana. Ileana?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to be with you. I would like just to remind everybody to take this great opportunity to ask questions to our panelists. So you can either write them in the Q&A box or raise your hands, but probably Q&A box works better. There is already a question that is directed to Aaron Jennes. And Aaron, it says, as Saskatchewan Tech president, what more can be done to ensure that international tech graduates from Saskatchewan can be fast-tracked in sync with industry demands, as well as utilizing the talent who have already landed in Saskatchewan on their own, following the economic stream. Could you please answer?
Sure. Thank you, Eliana. You missed the first part of that where it says it's great that we did something about immigration, but it's not enough. And so I appreciate being called out on that too. Absolutely, it's not enough. There are two parts to this answer. There's the what more can be done is, well, a lot. I mean, there's a ton of stuff we could do everywhere from government programs to databases to community events and management. The second part of it is what is reasonable to be able to activate in the short term, because really I think making changes is a matter of biting off little things that can happen in fairly short term that we can declare as a success. We can point to in terms of metrics. We place this many people, or these many people have accessed this service, or using metrics that actually speak more to the priorities of governments right now, which are things like this much tax revenue has been brought in by people over the last 5 years who were placed as part of this program. And so that it justifies the investment, right? Saskatchewan Polytech is really good at this, for instance, right now. They will put people into a program, 2 years later, they will graduate, and they will say, when they came into the program, their average salary was $35,000 a year. And they exited the program, they exited into programs where their average salary was $65,000 a year. So that growth in salary communicates to a tax base. That tax base is something a government can point to, then they can reinvest into the program. And so while we might say, this is the right thing to do, a multicultural society coming from with new immigrant experiences, with second and third generation immigrant experiences, with Indigenous experiences, makes us richer, makes us economically more robust, gives us a healthier society. That's not always the framing that's going to work. And so finding the ways in which we can construct small things that are going to be successful will do it. And in fact, that's one thing I'm going to be talking to Immigration and Career Training about, the Ministry of Immigration and Career Training about next week in Regina. We're having a conversation. One of the things on the table is the idea of, well, okay, we're now gathering, for the first time, we're gathering good data about who's coming into the province and what's happening to them. We're starting to understand that. Believe it or not, 3 years ago, we had no idea when somebody came in through the Saskatchewan Immigrant Nominee Program, whether they stayed at all, whether they moved to a different jurisdiction, whether they even left the country. None of that data was available whatsoever. And now we've started to chip away at the monolith of black box kind of behavior that is our immigration system and education system in the province. Start to understand a little bit more about the dynamics of that. That is something that Immigration and Career Training is doing, and there are some fantastic people there. So the next step really is to plug in the not-for-profits, the industry stakeholders, the educational stakeholders who all are concerned about how we can have an effect on the entire system and be able to access the pool of people with the skills necessary to fill what Brandon was talking about, and to catch people like Palash, as you're saying, here's my inflection point. You had two inflection points, Palash, right? You had an inflection point of arriving and saying, do I get a job or do I go to school? And then the subsequent inflection point of saying, I'm going to, I've graduated now, am I staying in the province? Catching people at those inflection points, people like Jing, who then we can say, oh, you got married, so now you're going to stay here. Trying to encourage people to be able to set down roots at those particular periods, that I think becomes the job. And so I see you've identified a couple of these key inflection points, arriving in the province with experience and graduating from a post-secondary with experience, with education. How do we track people? How do we offer them the opportunity? How do we let them access the labor force? And I think that is the question. And we do need to have a group of people thinking precisely about that and taking bite-sized little policy ideas that eventually could be put together into a concierge service. So I was a bit long-winded, but there we are.
Thank you very much, Aaron. We have Abdul Latif Alabi. They are raising their hand. Abdul, do you have a question? I think you are muted, Abdul. Maybe we have Karen Timashuk is raising their hand. So Karen.
Yes, thank you. I'm tasked with finding employment for a number of our newcomers. I work with Global Gathering Place, and I'm discovering that there are a number of employers that are interested in cross-cultural training for their employees, so that those employees are better equipped to interact on that non-policy level to create an environment that's more welcoming and inclusive for newcomer employees. And I'm wondering if any of the panelists have had the privilege of either facilitating or participating in a similar cross-cultural training, perhaps for employers. And I would like to learn whether or not you felt there was efficacy in providing that sort of training and maybe offering it through some sort of portal to prospective employers in Saskatchewan.
That is a great question. Yeah, so yeah, if it's okay, I can go about. And I think just to continue from where Aaron left, Aaron and Brandon, you both touched the point. Aaron was talking about like we need metrics, and Brandon was talking about culture, the question that comes in, right? That intercultural training, and you can tie those two things in, right? I mean, if you go, I mean, I went through 1 year of a degree in Saskatchewan. Did I get enough intercultural training? I didn't. I got my the Canadian degree, which gives me a stamp to say like I have Canadian education, right? But that intercultural training wasn't there. That actually has been focused on through different other trainings like equity, diversity, and inclusion training. And I facilitate at times, and we started recently, me and one of my colleagues recently started what we call talking about boundaries, the cultural boundaries, right, that you face at workplace. But that is so important because what Brendan was mentioning, if you recall during his talk, he was talking about like how does things work, and in different cultures things work differently, and knowing that takes so much time. And having that in a very streamlined way will be so beneficial for so many, not only newcomers, but also the students who are coming in and who want to stay maybe in Saskatchewan, but we haven't provided them that cultural context or organizational context.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paulish. We really appreciate your answer. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A, but I have a question, actually.
I'm sorry, I do see quite a few typed questions. Are those, I see from Babek and Gurpreet Singh, there's an anonymous person talking about Commonwealth experience.
Okay, sorry, this is it, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Canada, no, thank you, Aaron. We have an anonymous attendee asking, Canada is a member of the Commonwealth. How does one account for the enormous barriers to finding gainful employment faced by highly qualified and experienced new immigrants coming to Canada from other Commonwealth countries? Almost every permanent resident I know have had to hunt for what is called a survival job or remain unemployed for an extended period due primarily to artificial barriers. In your opinion, what can be done by the powers that be to begin eliminating some of those barriers so that Canadian citizens and the Canadian economy can benefit from the qualifications and experience of highly qualified newcomers? Will someone would like to take this answer?
Somebody should talk about APEX.
Please.
Not me. Brandon, do you want to take a shot at that, or Palash?
I think we can all say something about it. I think I come from a Commonwealth country myself. There's a lot of barriers for that, I understand, but I also, there's different standards. Again, the cultural standard as well as professional standards at different places are different. We just need to find those common metrics that actually can translate those experiences. Validation, for example. I was an engineer back home in Bangladesh. The company I used to work for doesn't exist anymore. How do I validate those things, right? And that can happen in Canada too. But making sure you have a good metrics in place, as Aaron was saying, to an easy one, not something that requires you to wait multiple years, right? And how you document those. There's a potential immigrant can actually document those in different ways other than getting a recommendation letter from an employer. There are other ways to record your experiences, your education, and your knowledge.
Yeah, and I'll add a little bit to that. I guess me personally, I've never been involved in lobbying or I'm definitely not an expert in policy or anything like that. And every profession is a little bit different, but a lot of this work will have to be led at the government level. I know that like associations like APEGS, that's the Professional Engineers and Geoscientists, they are doing work on this already. Palash already talked about that a little bit in his speech. But you know what the government does? The government does what powerful people ask them to do, essentially. And the people as well. But I think how we can influence government policy, whether it's federal or provincial or whatever jurisdiction, is by businesses telling the government what they need and what they believe is going to be healthy for the province, healthy for economic growth, healthy for individuals, healthy for communities. That is what drives the priorities. So it's a matter of prioritizing, doing what Palash was referencing, right? Creating those metrics by which they can assess that the quality, there's a lot of responsibility put on some of these professions that, the reference in the question. I mean, if I'm going to have surgery done on me, I want that individual to be qualified. But the metrics if metrics can demonstrate that an education obtained or experience obtained somewhere else in the world can provide that quality of healthcare that I expect and I'm privileged to have as a person that lives in Saskatchewan, then I'm inclined to trust that, and I do think that needs to be led by the government, but we can influence government priorities.
I add to that these professional organizations are actually made up of members who are the professionals themselves, and that tends to veer towards protectionism. That's just the way in which professional organizations end up being constructed. And we can look at bar exams. We can look at provincial exams for veterinarians. All of these are constructed to be barriers to people who do not have the same cultural background, who did not have the same age-related experience, and whatnot. So it is, I think it behooves those of us who are able to speak to those professional organizations, especially to those who are members of those professional organizations, to take on the task of keeping those organizations to task. And I think the language that helps there to speak as somebody who does occasionally lobby, is not to be talking about creating unnecessary barriers or whatnot, but instead to be creating pathways. Tina Baudry-Miller, when she was Ministry of Immigration and Status of Women and Innovation, Advanced Education and Status of Women, used to talk about pathways all the time. And it was a very powerful metaphor for allowing people to skip the possibility that they may not have been meeting needs by creating barriers, and instead provide people with a way of navigating towards something better. And in this case, it's okay, perhaps there's a possibility that the training that you received in your home country doesn't quite match what we expect, or that we don't understand it sufficiently to be able to assess it, which is actually probably more the case. Let's create a deliberate pathway that is rapid and simple and clear to both us and you about how you're going to get in here, because we recognize it's important. So I think speaking to government about saying, hey, these are areas of priority. You need more doctors in this province. That's really good. I don't know if we need more lawyers, but okay. Then say to the professional organizations, government's telling you you need more of them. Let's work together to create a pathway so that people who are here with those skills are able to get professionally accredited.
And Aaron, what you mentioned I just feel so completely agreed on that. And the other part is sensitizing the people. Like most of when somebody applies, and if you give them a letter saying you don't qualify, that needs more detailed sensitization, that why it is, right? That's oftentimes is missing. All those things you're talking about, the pathways, they say, okay, you're rejected, but also doesn't describe, hey, you can take these pathways and actually go there.
Thank you for your answers.
Can I add something?
Basi, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to mention, we talk of these barriers, and there are so many of them, especially faced by immigrants. Now, we also have situations in the positive direction where you apply for a job, you are not rejected, or you are not offered the job, not because you are not qualified, but because you are overqualified. So it happens that way. So I understand the point of view of some of these companies, but there's still some that do things the other way. It's all a question of trust, like one of the panelists mentioned. Let's say I open a clinic here in Canada, right? And then I advertise for the position of a doctor. Someone from some other country applies. Maybe the person is here in Saskatoon applies. You have to consider so many things. I mean, in what way can you actually confirm that the training or the experience this person has in that field, it's okay, or it's in accordance with what is obtainable in Canada? So that's a big challenge. It's a bigger problem. And then I think one of the things, I know that I have so many family friends that are doctors, and what they are going through in order to be able to fit to the system. I keep telling them, look, you are coming from Nigeria. It's a different ballgame over there. And then there are things put in place. I don't joke with law and order. There are things put in place. You are not being prevented from the system. All what the system is asking is that these are the paths you have to follow in order to get in. Okay, if you so much love that, you try to follow that path, and then eventually some of them have gotten in. And then we also have a situation where some of these high position jobs are occupied by, they come in within 3 or 4 months, they get the job. So it kind of mixed, right? Like people have different experiences, some positive, some negative. And I have a friend that's occupying a very high position and got it within 6 months of coming into landing in Saskatoon. So it's mixed. I know the negative side tends to be more. So these are things we just have to bear in mind. You so much love a job, and they said, this is what you have to do to get it. To me, I'll just do what is required in order to get there. I know some of the challenges, if you look at what others may not be okay, but you want to get in, you have to do what you have to do, or what is required. That's just my piece of contribution.
Thank you very much, Basi. Being mindful of the time, we are going to take one more question. We can see a few others, and we will share those with our panelists. So Babak Alizadeh has a question. I'm a newcomer as a permanent resident. As I conclude, the chance of being directly engaged in the job market is quite slim, since we need to get aligned through USask or voluntary activities. I was wondering if you could explain how we could start a career right away. Many of us are professionals seeking opportunities to take off. Moreover, I would like to inquire what kind of measures have been taken to convince recruiters to accept newcomers without Canadian experience or education. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Please.
I think it's still in line with the last question we all tried to answer. In terms of setting up, I know, if I'm not mistaken, I think the Newcomer Information Center or the Open Door Society, I think that when you are new to Canada, you are advised to get in touch with them. I know of some people that landed, got in touch with them. They have this program where they try to help put you through in order to prepare you in your career path. And I know some people that have been successful. And in fact, when you are applying for a job in your career path, you can even get a kind of a reference from them because they offer some sort of training just to prepare you for the workforce. So I would say such person to maybe get in touch with the Open Door Society or Newcomer Information Center. I think they are both located in Saskatoon, in downtown, and they are close, the buildings are close to each other, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you, Basi. I would like to let everybody know that we are taking note of those questions. And again, we will share them with the panelists since we are looking for solutions to newcomer employment issues. And once again, I would like to thank everybody, all the panelists, for your time and contributions. We learned so much from you and you gave us lots of food for thought. Thank you for your time. Have a great day. And I'm going to give the screen and to Shadi. Thank you very much.